Hi, hello, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining in today. Today is our episode number 47, and this is free Intune training provided by How to Manage Devices community. If you have any query or questions related to device management, please feel free to use our forum to get discussion going and get the answers, right? That is HTMD forum.com, right? Okay, so let's get into the business for today, right? uh, Yesterday we were talking about application protection policies with MAM and MDM, right? MAM is mobile application management. Without managing the device, we will be managing only the applications, corporate applications, right? That was the topic which we talked, and we did Intune trial subscription extension, and we purchased a new subscription, that is Microsoft 365 subscription. And as I mentioned, Microsoft 365 extension subscription uh, will help us to test something called application protection policies, right? Application protection policies, and that is Windows information protection for Windows, right? So this is Windows 10 component which is inbuilt in Windows operating system itself, right? And this is what we are going to see now. This is called application protection policies for Windows, right? Application protection policy for Windows is WIP, that is Windows information protection. Okay, so that is why we took a Office 365 mailbox subscription and all, and we installed Outlook and configured Outlook mailbox so that we can test information protection, Windows information protection, right? How that this this component, Windows 10 component, is going to help us in some of data leakage scenarios, right? Okay, so let's get into it first, right? So what does what does application app protection policies, right? So as you can see over here, yesterday we have seen app protection policies, and we can create Windows 10 app protection policy, and you will get the two options over here. One is with enrollment and without enrollment. Without enrollment is for MAM, mobile application management, right? In that case, you won't be adding your account or device to MDM enrollment, right? So that will be just a MAM. We have seen MAM when we did a Azure AD registration only, right? There was a MAM scenario over there. Okay, but today we are going to see with enrollment. So before going into this configuration, let me give you a brief intro about the protection needs and protection scenarios within Windows, right? As you know, we've been using BitLocker for many years now, right? So BitLocker is one of the protection method that is basically for the device protection, right? If the device is stolen or somebody else took your device and they separated hard disk and tried to do something, because of the protection or BitLocker encryption, you won't that data leakage won't happen, right? That is why we use BitLocker encryption, right? And that is the first stage of the protection, right? When you talk about data protection or device protection or overall protection, right? Okay, so that is the first stage, and then Windows 10 comes up with something called a inbuilt solution for accidental data leakage, right? This is accidental data leakage. If an employee try to do some copy paste from some of the confidential documents, and he by mistakenly copied it to Twitter or Facebook or something, right? So to avoid that kind of issues, right? So for example, if an employee sent that information to some other uh, email recipient or some other sent to his personal email recipient, right? So by accident, so he was not aware the email was incorrect, or the email mailbox he was using was a personal one. He didn't notice that, right? In that case, WIP, I don't know why I'm calling it a VIP again and again, right? WIP is going to help us. So WIP is nothing but Windows Information Protection, right? So this is an inbuilt component within Windows 10. Okay, so this is part of that. WIP is part of data separation as well as leak protection. So if you want to have a DLP solution, the end-to-end DLP solution, then WIP won't help you 100%, right? It is, as I mentioned, it is accidental data leakage. Accidental, I don't know how to spell it. I'm spelling it correctly or not, but accidental data leakage, right? This is only for the accidental data leakage. But if you want some other leakage protection scenarios, if you want to cover like data on the move, all right, if you are sending a email there with email document, if you are sending a document with email, then WIP is not going to help you much, right? You need to have something called Azure Information Protection, right? So as you can see over here, that is for sharing protection, etc., right? So you need to use WIP along with all these three components, right? That is the recommended way as per Microsoft, right? You need to have BitLocker, you need to have WIP, then you need to have Windows Information, Azure Information Protection, AIP, right? To have a full full covered data leakage protection or information protection, right? So this is the overview of WIP. Okay. So WIP is one of the important component within Windows and Intune implementation. Many organizations are using WIP policies for data leakage protection. So all these things are taken from a Microsoft documentation, right? So as you can see, this is the prerequisites of using Windows Information Protection, WIP, right? As you know, you can use WIP with MECM. MECM is nothing but SCM, right? Or configuration manager, right? And the version, Windows 10 version required for that is basically 1607. Minimum version requirement is 1607. If your Windows 10 is above 1607, then you would be able to use WIP, right? As I mentioned, WIP, Windows Information Protection, is core component of Windows 10 itself, right? So how it works? As I mentioned, this is to prevent data leakage, right? But accidental data leakage, right? Microsoft is specifically mentioned, highlighted this in their documentation. It is not like if an employee wants to leak the data like that, like it is not accidental, then he can anyways leak the data, right? There are ways to leak the data even though you enabled Windows Information Protection, right? So this is only for accidental data leakage scenarios. Okay, and you can see there are different, sorry, there are different options, configuration options within WIP policies, right? We will see this in Intune also, right? Block allow, override, right? Silent and off, right? These are the four policy WIP policy options available. Block means like if a user tries to copy some official confidential document and try to paste it in Google, it will say, oh, this is corporate data, you are not allowed to paste it to Google or Twitter, right? So that is block. So user won't be able to do anything, right? uh, won't be able to complete that operation, I mean. And if you do this one, allow overrides, that means if a user tries to copy a mail content, official mail content, to Twitter, then it will give you a warning pop up. It will say like, oh, I'm are you copying official data to a public forum? Is it okay to continue? Then you need to confirm, yeah, that's fine, right? Then it will allow you. So it won't restrict you, but it it won't block you, but it will give you a warning, right? Silent is it will allow you to copy paste, but it will log event logs will be there to capture all the activities by that particular user, right? And you would be able to evaluate what he did and what he or she did, right? And what kind of document got leaked, etc., etc. What kind of data got leaked, etc., etc. Right? That is silent. Now, Office, so there is no accidental data leakage. It is kind of allowed. It is not enabled. Basic, right? WIP is not enabled. Okay. So this is the basic idea of WIP. Okay. So now let's go into the Windows 10 side of it, right? We have not configured anything over here, right? Anything on these missions, right? So what I did is basically, let me close this down, right? Let me open up the task manager from here, my Windows 10 device. Okay. And let me go to details tab over here, right? Details tab. In details tab, you would be able to see something new over here, right? Enterprise context, right? Enterprise context is the helpful tab. I added this tab actually, right? I added this column, right? By selecting by default, this is not added on your missions. So you need to go down here and select enterprise context. Then only it will get added. So this is one of the option. From this option, you would be able to see whether the WIP policy is enabled on this device or not, right? One of the scenario, right? Now it says NA, not applicable, right? That means it's not enabled, right? Once after we enable this policy or deploy this policy to the device, you would be able to see personal or enterprise over here, right? If it's a personal application which is not allowed to copy paste, right? For example, if you are copying a data from your official email to a personal application, probably that won't allow. If you have block in place, right, it will block that data move, right? Copy paste from official to official document to the personal application, right? So how the system will understand which is the personal application, which is the corporate application, right? So we can configure that policy in through WIP. And there are some application which are enlightened with WIP, right? So this is Windows 10 core feature, right? WIP is core feature, as I mentioned before, but some of the applications are WIP enlightened. When I say WIP enlightened, that means it can understand two contexts, right? Enterprise context as well as personal context, right? the same application can be used for your personal use as well as your enterprise use. For example, perfect example is Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, right? Notepad. These are enlightened application, WIP enlightened application. So you can use those applications easily with WIP policies. It can be used for personal use as well as for the enterprise use. Okay, but some of the applications are not enlightened with WIP. Then that means that those applications are will have difficulties to use, right? The WIP policies. Then you need to exempt those applications from your policy list. Okay, so lot of talking there. So let's go into the policy configuration over here, and let's see what does it exactly. So from where I'm going into this application, I clicked on apps node over here, and application protection policies, and I'm going to create a new application protection policy for Windows 10, right? I'm going to say HTMD Windows 10 WIP block policy. Okay, so this is a policy to block accidental data leakage. Okay, Windows info protection policy for blocking accidental data leakage. Excuse me with the what do you call typos. So don't worry about the typos. Yeah, I don't think we can fix it now. Anyways, so provide the point is provide the exact description, right? So block is the keyword over here. WIP block is the keyword over here, right? So this is block policy, and you can have a override policy also over here. As I mentioned, you can have a override policy also. You can have a block policy. Now we are creating this block policy. This will block the copy paste accidental data leakage. Okay, so next, without enrollment, I am going to select with enrollment, because that is what our scenario is. All our devices are MDM enrolled, right? And click next. Ma'am is like you won't be able to see those devices in Intune portal, right? So it is not MDM managed. If we are if we select without enrollment, right? That is MAM, mobile application management devices, right? Those devices won't be there in Intune portal, right? So we have seen those scenarios previously, as I mentioned before also. So with enrollment, we are going to go with enrollment. Now this is a part, right? These are the application allowed to access enterprise data and interact differently when you used with unallowed, non-enterprise aware or personal only apps, right? So this is what I told you about the WIP enlightened apps, right? So WIP enlightened apps are like the Notepad. The easiest example is Notepad, right? And Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. These are the easiest apps which you can understand. And there are some vendor apps also, as you can see over here. When I click on add, right now I'm going to add an application to a WIP policy, right? So that will be termed as enterprise application, and probably if the application is enabled enlightened with WIP, then it will understand the personal data and the enterprise data, right? And it will act accordingly. Okay, it can work in two contexts, personal and enterprise context, if the application is enabled or enlightened with WIP. Okay, so just add, click on add, you would be able to see a lot of options over here. But default by default these are populated, right? Automatically populated. You can see company portal, you can see other stuffs over there, OneDrive, Notepad, right? All these are enlightened apps, right? WIP enlightened apps. So that means it can understand the context, right? It can understand the context of what? Context of personal and enterprise use, right? So I'm going to select Office 365, right? Let's select Office 365. This is, I'm going to select Notepad, and I'm going to select Office 365, probably OneDrive. I don't want to select um, Paint now. Okay, probably let's select Paint also, right? Okay. So, and probably company portal also, right? So there are two types of applications over here, right? Over here, type, store type, and desktop. Desktop is, as I mentioned yesterday, desktop is basically normal MSI application, and type store is basically store application. And if you add some applications manually, you have an option to add the applications manually, right? That is using app locker policy and all, right? So that option is coming up, probably we will see in the upcoming episodes, right? Now I selected all these applications for now, and I'm going to say okay, I'm not going to exempt any application, right? I am not going to exclude any application now, right? But you can do that, and we will see that in coming up episodes as well, right? Now let's click, we have selected the applications. Now let's go ahead and click next, right? And see what is over here, right? There are, these are the Windows information protection modes available. As I mentioned, I'm going to select block over here so that it will block. The corporate identity, this is the important one, right? The field should contain only the primary domain. So our primary domain in this scenario is how to manage devices.com on Microsoft.com. That is our primary domain, and tenant tenant details, right? So this is our tenant, and this is what we are going to use here. So if you have something like your domain is something like Microsoft.com, right? Then you should use that over here. Or if my domain is like local domain is HTMD.com, then I should use HTMD.com over here, right? Okay. So that is the corporate identity, yeah. If I can say it correctly. Okay, so click next, and now these are advanced options, right? We can configure it, and we need to configure it basically, right? We have to configure it to get this working appropriately, but at the moment these are not mandatory configurations. These are not mandatory configurations. So if I say next, right, we will go through this all these configurations later, but I just wanted to show these are not like mandatory configurations. Okay, so this is for proxy, this is for adding the network basically. And you can say protected domains, which is your primary domain. You can enter the same thing over here, like how to manage devices dot on Microsoft.com, etc. We will configure all this, right, later. At the moment, we are not going to configure it. Let's leave it as it is, right? I'm going to show, select only this one. Show the enterprise data protection icon on the application. So this will help us to understand, right? This, in a briefcase icon will appear on WIP enlightened or applications, right? So that is why this option is enabled. But otherwise, we are going to stay with the same options, right? We are not going to change anything. So this is search WIP enabled files, etc., etc., right? It is WIP is doing some kind of an encryption to protect the data leakage, right? So that is another point which I missed to say before, right? So WIP is kind of when you enable WIP for a particular application, for then enterprise data going through that particular application will be kind of an encryption in encrypted mode, right? So that encryption is not similar to BitLocker encryption or something like that, but yeah, just to let you know, right? Okay, so click next. Now, as you know, I didn't change anything apart from that icon thing in the advanced settings, but there are a lot of things which we can do over there, but we will see that in the upcoming episodes, right? Now, I'm going to use company devices, right? I'm going to use company on devices over here, right, to test this first, right? So it will only go to CYO devices, right? Azure AD join devices. Click next, and then review and confirm what is it exactly, right? And how many applications we have selected, etc., etc., right? And what is the required settings. You can see required settings, right? Additional advanced settings are optional. When I started doing this vi WIP, right, these advanced settings were also kind of were mandatory. It was also required, right? I have a blog post somewhere here. I Yeah, this was the one I created WIP policy for SCM and what do you call Intune at that time. It was back in 2016, I think. Yeah, 2016. So at that time, it was mandatory. All these advanced settings, right? Four of the advanced settings were mandatory. We'll see that in upcoming episodes, like tomorrow or day after tomorrow, right? Let's create, and now let's see what is going to happen with this, right? So help and support, nothing is there. Overview. Let's The one thing missing over here is monitoring and report, right? That report is not there yet, right? So let's go back to our Azure AD joined device, right? And let's try to select the let's check the policy event logs first, right? So let's refresh. Okay, we did a refresh. When was that happened? It was 2:37. Okay, 2:37 a.m. That is not the latest one. Let's do a refresh again. Okay, nothing is changing there. We are already running out of time. Let's sync and check what is going to happen. Okay, so let's go to task manager and enable the enlightened tab over here. So this is the default view, right? I don't have that enlightened tab over here. Let me find out the enlightened tab. I don't know where it is exactly. Enterprise context, right? Enterprise context, right? I'm going to click on, oh, okay. So now you can see exempt, personal, right? How to manage device. This one is Notepad. Now Notepad is my enterprise application, right? Enlightened application. See, you can see we have deployed the policies, and enlightened application. It is Notepad will be used for both the scenarios, right? So if I click on this and let me open up the new one, right? Probably Notepad. And if I try to copy something over here, right? This is my official email ID, right? Then let me try to copy this and probably try to copy it over here, right? It is not yet enabled, right? So Outlook is not probably treated as, we have not enabled the Outlook up probably, right? We will see that what is going to happen there, right? Now normally it should block this it should allow this copy paste, because Notepad is an enlightened application. There should be an symbol over here, a briefcase symbol over here in the Notepad, that I'm missing. Now let's check event logs and confirm whether the enlightenment is happened or not. Okay, so Windows information protection changed, etc., etc. This is coming. So there are something happening over here. Oh, okay. I lost the control probably because of the WIP policies. Now I need to enable the RTP also. Okay. Okay, so I lost the control. So this is the best time to end the session for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask now. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, thank you all for joining in today. We will continue this tomorrow. I hope I would be able to fix that RTP access issue because of WIP. Okay, thank you all for joining in today. We'll talk to you tomorrow, same time, same place. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, Anu. Bye.